My wife believed her best friend's lie that I cheated and left me. That's the headline of my story, but the truth behind it is more painful than those words can ever show. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 28 years old, and up until a year ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I worked steady hours at a construction company. I came home tired but proud, and I believed I was building a solid future with the woman I love. My wife, Rachel, was the center of my world. She was soft-spoken, with this laugh that could make a hard day feel light again. She wasn't perfect, nobody is, but she was mine, and I never once thought of breaking the vows I made to her. We'd been married for 4 years, and those years weren't glamorous, but they were ours. We didn't live in a mansion, but in a small, cozy house on the edge of town. We didn't travel much, but our Friday nights with pizza and movies felt better than any vacation. I believed she knew that I loved her with everything I had. Rachel had a best friend, Jessica Carter, who was always around. At first, I welcomed her. She and Rachel had been close since high school, and it only felt natural that Jessica came by often. She was bold where Rachel was shy, loud where Rachel was gentle. But over time, I noticed little comments she'd make when I was around. Things like, "Rachel, doesn't it bother you that Ethan works late so much?" Or, "He's handsome, but you can never trust men who get too much attention." She'd laugh afterward, brushing it off as a joke, but her words always had an edge. I didn't pay much attention to it then. I thought maybe she was just protective of her friend, maybe even trying to test me in her own strange way. Rachel sometimes grew quiet after Jessica's remarks, but I'd hug her, kiss her on the forehead, and remind her that she was the only woman I'd ever wanted. I thought love and consistency were enough to silence those doubts. Life was good. At least I thought it was. I'd come home after work to find Rachel cooking dinner, her hair tied back, humming to herself. We'd eat, we'd laugh, and sometimes I'd look at her and think, this is it. This is happiness. On weekends, we'd take walks in the park or spend hours browsing through thrift shops. I wasn't rich, but I felt rich in the ways that mattered. But Jessica's eyes lingered on me longer than they should have. Sometimes, when Rachel stepped out of the room, I caught her looking at me with a smirk that made me uncomfortable. She'd make remarks like, "You don't know how lucky you are, Ethan. Guys like you don't usually settle down so young." I'd just smile awkwardly and change the subject. I never wanted to give her the impression that I welcomed her attention. Looking back, maybe I should have said something to Rachel then. Maybe I should have drawn a firm line. But I didn't want to create drama between two women who had been inseparable for years. I thought Jessica's comments were just harmless jealousy, nothing that could actually tear us apart. If only I had known how wrong I was. It began with small changes that I couldn't explain. Rachel, who used to greet me with a smile when I walked through the door, started looking at me with suspicion. Her warmth turned into short replies, her laughter into silence. I couldn't figure out what I had done wrong. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed or tired, but the distance between us kept growing, and I felt like I was losing the woman I knew. Jessica was still around more than ever. She had this way of slipping words into conversation as if they meant nothing, but they cut deep. One evening, while I was grabbing a drink from the fridge, I overheard her saying to Rachel, "I could have sworn I saw Ethan with someone near the diner the other day. Maybe I was mistaken, but it really looked like him." She said it with a casual shrug, like it was just small talk. But the look on Rachel's face told me it wasn't small at all. After that, Rachel started watching me more closely. If I said I had to stay late at work, she'd raise an eyebrow and give a half-hearted nod. If I got a text, she'd glance at my phone like she was waiting for proof of something. I didn't understand it. I'd never lied to her, never even thought about it. Every day I went to work, and every night I came home to her. Yet somehow it felt like I was already on trial for something I hadn't done. I tried to talk to her. "Rach, is something wrong?" I asked one night while she was folding laundry with her back to me. She just said, "I'm fine," in a clipped tone, her hands moving faster, her shoulders stiff. I pressed gently, but she shut down, refusing to meet my eyes. The more I tried, the more she pulled away. The tension built in ways I couldn't ignore. She stopped holding my hand when we went out. She avoided sitting close to me on the couch. At dinner, instead of sharing stories about her day, she would eat quickly and retreat to the bedroom, leaving me at the table with my confusion. I knew something was being whispered into her ear, something that had poisoned the trust we once shared. I could feel the shift, but I didn't know the details yet. Jessica's timing was too perfect, her presence too constant. Every time Rachel seemed most upset with me, Jessica had been there earlier that day. I could sense the connection, but I had no way to prove it. The worst part was Rachel's silence. She wouldn't confront me directly. Instead, she let the doubts grow inside her, eating away at everything we had built. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, while she turned her back to me. I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close, but it felt like there was an invisible wall between us, something I couldn't break through no matter how hard I tried. I was faithful. I was present. I had nothing to hide. Yet, for reasons I couldn't understand, the woman I loved most was slipping away, and I was left in the dark, aching for answers that never came. It all came crashing down one evening when Rachel stormed into the house, her face pale and eyes burning with anger I'd never seen before. She didn't even set her purse down. She slammed the door behind her and said, almost shaking, "I know everything. Don't bother lying." I froze, not even understanding what she meant. My heart pounded as I asked her what she was talking about. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air like glass. "Jessica told me. She saw you leaving a hotel with some woman. Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I wouldn't find out?" My legs felt weak. I had never stepped foot in a hotel with anyone. I tried to process the words, but the fury on her face left me scrambling. "Rachel, that's not true. I've never done anything like that. You know me. I swear to you, I've never cheated." But she wasn't listening. She was pacing the living room, throwing her arms in the air, her voice cracking with rage. "Don't stand there and act innocent. Jessica wouldn't lie to me. She's been trying to protect me from you all along. God, I can't believe I married someone who could betray me like that." I stepped forward, desperate to make her see the truth. "Please listen to me. I have never, ever been unfaithful. I don't know what Jessica told you, but she's wrong. She's lying. I love you, Rachel. I would never hurt you like that." She spun around, eyes wet with tears but full of certainty that I couldn't break. "Stop it, Ethan. I don't want to hear another word. You're just making excuses." The argument spiraled into shouting. I begged her to trust me, to remember the years we'd shared, the life we'd built. She shouted back that she couldn't live with a man she couldn't trust. Every word out of her mouth tore into me, and no matter how many times I said the truth, it bounced off the wall she had already built in her heart. Finally, she pointed toward the door. "I'm done. I want out. We're finished." I stood there in shock, unable to move, unable to breathe. "Rachel, please. You're making a mistake. I love you." Her reply was cold, final. "Love isn't enough when there's no trust." She left that night, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed through the empty house, heavier than anything I'd ever felt. Within days, I was served papers for separation. I sat at our kitchen table, staring at them, unable to believe how fast everything had collapsed. No chance to prove myself, no space to explain, just an accusation, and then the end. The walls of our home, once filled with warmth, now felt like a prison closing in on me. I hadn't lost her to another man. I hadn't lost her to neglect. I lost her to a lie, and no matter how much I tried to fight for the truth, she refused to see it. I was left broken, blindsided, with nothing but the hollow echo of her words replaying in my head. "We're finished." After Rachel left, life became quieter than I ever thought possible. The silence in the house pressed on me like a weight. It wasn't just her absence I felt. It was the absence of everyone else too. Friends I had known for years stopped calling. Messages went unanswered. People I once considered family looked the other way when I tried to explain. It was as if her side of the story had spread like wildfire, and no one cared to ask me mine. Invitations disappeared. Dinners we used to be part of carried on without me. A couple of my closest buddies, men I thought would stand by me, cut ties completely. I'd walk into a cafe or grocery store and feel eyes on me, whispers trailing behind like shadows. All because of something I didn't do. With every door that closed, the walls of my world shrank. I started spending most of my time at home, curtains drawn, phone on silent. Days bled into nights without much meaning. I stared at the same walls, the same pictures on the shelves, wondering how everything I'd built unraveled so quickly. The thoughts in my head grew darker. I asked myself what the point was in staying where no one believed me, where my name had been dragged through the mud. There were nights I considered packing up and driving until I ran out of gas, leaving it all behind, just vanishing. The temptation was real, and for a while it scared me how much sense it made. But deep down, something stopped me. Maybe it was stubbornness, maybe pride, but I couldn't let lies define me. I couldn't disappear and let Jessica's story become the only truth people remembered. As broken as I was, a small fire inside refused to go out. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew I couldn't surrender. It was during this time, when I thought I'd hit rock bottom, that Jessica's behavior shifted. She started reaching out more often, texting me late at night, asking how I was holding up. At first, I thought it was strange kindness, maybe pity. But her words carried undertones I couldn't ignore. "You don't deserve what happened. Rachel never appreciated you the way she should have." Once she called and said, "You know, I always thought you were too good for her." Her voice lingered in a way that made me uneasy. Another time she suggested we meet for coffee, just to talk. She spoke with the confidence of someone who hadn't just destroyed my life. Each message twisted the knife deeper. The same person who had planted the poison now posed as the healer. She wanted to comfort me, but it didn't feel like compassion. It felt like something else, like possession, like victory. That's when the fog in my head began to clear. As much as I wanted to curl up and give in to despair, her sudden concern was a clue I couldn't ignore. Something about her eagerness didn't add up, and though I was drowning in pain, my instincts whispered that the truth was closer than I thought. One afternoon, while I was running an errand, I walked past a small cafe near the edge of town. I wasn't planning to stop, but a familiar voice caught my attention. It was Jessica. She was sitting by the window, speaking with another woman I vaguely recognized from Rachel's circle. I should have kept walking, but something in her tone froze me in place. Through the glass, I could see the smug smile on her face as she leaned forward and said, "I had to step in." Rachel never saw what Ethan was really like. If it wasn't for me, she'd still be trapped in that marriage. The woman gasped, clearly impressed. Jessica's grin widened. "I did what had to be done. I saved her." Those words hit me like a hammer. Saved her? From what? I knew right then it was never about concern. It was about control. She wasn't protecting Rachel. She was destroying us for her own twisted reasons. My hands trembled with rage, but I forced myself to keep walking, not letting her notice me. Confronting her in that moment would have done nothing but give her satisfaction. That night, back at home, I couldn't get her words out of my head. Pieces started to click together. The constant doubts she'd planted, the way Rachel had believed her without hesitation, and her sudden shift to reaching out to me after the separation. It all pointed to one thing. She wanted me for herself. But wanting wasn't enough. She needed to tear Rachel away to get it. Still, I didn't have hard evidence. My suspicions weren't enough. I needed proof, something undeniable. So I dug. Rachel hadn't changed the password on her old tablet, which was still in the drawer of our desk. I knew it wasn't right, but desperation pushed me forward. When I opened it, I found their old text threads. Reading those messages felt like being punched in the gut over and over. Jessica had crafted entire stories, sending Rachel updates of where she supposedly saw me, always with enough detail to sound convincing. "Saw Ethan's truck parked outside that hotel again," one read. Another said, "He left work early today with some girl, I swear." None of it was true. I knew where I had been those days, but to Rachel, it had looked airtight. Worse still, some of the texts dripped with manipulation. "You deserve better than someone who sneaks around. Don't let him fool you." Rachel's responses showed her heartbreak, her confusion, her slow collapse under the weight of lies. My chest burned as I scrolled, but then I found the final confirmation. One thread ended with Jessica writing, "Don't worry. I'll be here for you no matter what happens." And then, not long after the breakup, another message where she admitted to Rachel, "If he doesn't love you the way he should, maybe he'll realize who really cares for him." That was it, the mask slipping. I dropped the tablet onto the desk and sat there in stunned silence. The betrayal was deeper than I'd imagined. She hadn't just meddled. She had built a trap, one brick at a time, until Rachel walked right into it. My blood boiled, but I didn't smash the tablet or storm out to confront her. No, this wasn't the time for chaos. She had played a long game, and if I wanted justice, I had to be patient. Revenge would come, but not recklessly. For the first time in months, my mind felt clear. I finally knew the truth, and I would decide when and how to use it. I called Rachel one afternoon and asked if we could meet. My voice was steady, but inside I was shaking. She hesitated at first, her silence heavy on the line, but finally agreed. We chose a quiet park away from familiar faces, somewhere neutral where no one could overhear what I had to say. When she arrived, she kept her distance, arms crossed, as if she still expected me to confess something I hadn't done. I didn't waste time with small talk. I pulled the tablet from my bag, turned it on, and handed it to her. "Read," I said simply. She frowned, confused, but as her eyes moved across the screen, her expression shifted. The color drained from her face. Her lips parted, and her hands trembled slightly as she scrolled. The words were right there in front of her, the stories Jessica had invented, the little nudges that twisted her thinking, and then that final line where Jessica's intentions bled through. Rachel closed the tablet slowly, staring at the ground. For a long time, she didn't say anything. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked, This was real? You didn't." Her throat caught on the words she couldn't finish. I nodded, keeping my voice even. "I told you I was faithful. I told you I never betrayed you. But you trusted her over me. You let her poison everything we had." Her eyes filled with tears. She reached for me, but I stepped back. She broke then, covering her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking as sobs poured out. Between gasps, she begged, "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought I was protecting myself. I thought I was protecting us." The sight of her crumbling tore at me. For years, she had been my closest companion, my safe place, and now she was on her knees in the grass, pleading for something I wasn't sure I could give. "Please," she whispered, "give me another chance. I'll make it right. I'll do whatever it takes." I wanted to hold her, to wipe away her tears, but the wound she left was still raw. My chest ached as I answered, "You didn't just doubt me, Rachel. You walked away. You believed someone else without even letting me prove myself. Do you know what that did to me?" She reached again, desperate, her voice breaking. "I was wrong. I should have trusted you. I see it now. Please, Ethan, please." I stood there, torn between the love I still felt and the pain that had hollowed me out. Part of me wanted to forgive, to rebuild what we'd lost, but another part screamed that trust, once shattered, could never be put back the same way. I didn't give her an answer that day. I couldn't. All I could say was, "I hear you, but don't expect me to pretend nothing happened." Then I turned and walked away, leaving her crying behind me, my own heart heavy with the weight of everything broken between us. After meeting with Rachel, I couldn't sleep. My body was restless, my mind replaying every moment that led to this point. She had finally seen the truth, but that wasn't enough. Jessica had poisoned everything I loved, and she walked around as if she'd done something noble. That thought burned in me until a single decision became clear. She wasn't going to get away with it. I started small. When Jessica called late one evening, her voice soft and suggestive, I let the conversation go on longer than usual. She told me she worried about me being alone, how she understood me in ways Rachel never did. I stayed calm, answering in short replies, but I kept my phone recording the entire time. Every word dripped with her real intentions, and this time I had proof. Over the next few weeks, I baited her carefully. I let her think I was vulnerable, broken, someone she could swoop in and claim. She'd text things like, "You deserve someone who sees your worth," and I'd respond just enough to keep her talking. Each message was saved, each call documented. The mask she wore around Rachel and the others was slipping, and I was the one pulling it down. The opportunity came when a mutual friend organized a small get-together. It was the kind of gathering Rachel and I used to attend all the time, but now I would walk in with a different purpose. I showed up quiet, reserved, blending into the group. Jessica was there, smiling confidently, laughing loudly as if she hadn't destroyed lives. When the moment felt right, I pulled out my phone and said, "I think there's something everyone needs to hear." The room fell silent. I played the recording from the first call, Jessica's voice echoing through the speaker, saying how Rachel never appreciated me, how she thought I deserved someone else. Gasps filled the room. Eyes turned toward her. She tried to interrupt, but I raised my hand and pressed play again. This time, her words were unmistakable. If he doesn't love her the way he should, maybe he'll realize who really cares for him. Rachel's face went pale. Friends who had believed Jessica's story stared at her in shock. The confidence she always carried drained in an instant. She stammered, tried to claim it was taken out of context, but the evidence spoke for itself. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just looked at Rachel and then at everyone else. "This is the person you trusted. This is who you believed over me." The room buzzed with anger, but none of it was directed at me. Jessica's mask had shattered, and she stood exposed. Some people whispered. Others walked out, disgusted. Rachel covered her mouth with her hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. Jessica reached for me, desperate, but no one wanted to hear her excuses anymore. Her reputation crumbled right there in front of us all. The respect she once commanded was gone. She wasn't the savior she pretended to be. She was revealed as the liar who tore apart a marriage for her own selfish desires. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of control return. Not joy, not victory, just a heavy but steady calm. She had built her power on lies, and now the truth had stripped it all away. After the night Jessica's mask was torn off, I expected distance from Rachel, maybe even silence. Instead, she showed up at my door a few days later. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hands clutching each other nervously. For a moment she didn't speak, just stood there in the doorway as if she didn't know how to start. Finally, her voice cracked as she said, "I ruined everything." I let her inside. She sat at the edge of the couch, shoulders trembling, unable to look at me directly. "I should have trusted you," she whispered. "All this time, I let her get in my head. I let my fears blind me, and I destroyed the best thing I ever had." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she went on. "You were good to me, and I threw it all away because I listened to someone who never wanted my happiness." Hearing her admit it should have made me feel better, but instead it twisted inside me. I had wanted her to see the truth, yes, but the cost was already paid. She reached out, her voice pleading now. "Please, Ethan, give me another chance. I love you. I know I messed up, but I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I can't lose you forever." Her words hit me hard. I did still love her. No matter what happened, that love hadn't vanished. The memories of our life together weren't erased. But so were the nights I'd lain awake in an empty bed, the looks of suspicion in her eyes, the way she had chosen to walk away instead of trusting me. That wound ran deeper than any apology could heal. I took a long breath and said carefully, "Rachel, I hear your regret. I believe you're sorry. But you didn't just doubt me, you left. You chose her version of me over the man who stood right in front of you. How am I supposed to live with that?" She shook her head, sobbing harder, clinging to my arm. "Because I'll never make that mistake again. I swear to you, I've learned. I see now what I did. Don't give up on us, Ethan. Please." I gently pulled my arm free, not in anger but in sorrow. "The problem is, I can't unlive what you did. Every time I look at you, I'll remember how quickly you believed the worst about me. I'll remember how fast you left. Love isn't enough if the foundation is broken." Her body slumped forward, her sobs filling the room. I turned my face away, fighting the urge to comfort her the way I always used to. Part of me wanted nothing more than to hold her, forgive her, rebuild what had been shattered. But the other part knew that trust, once destroyed, couldn't be rebuilt with promises alone. Finally, I spoke softly. "I'll always care for you, but I can't be your husband anymore. That part of us is gone." Her cries grew quiet after that. She stood slowly, wiping her face with shaking hands, and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she turned back, eyes full of pain. "I'll regret this for the rest of my life." I didn't answer. I just watched her leave, carrying with her the weight of choices that could never be undone. The weeks after Rachel's visit were heavy, but slowly I began piecing myself back together. At first it was small things, waking up early, cooking for myself, forcing my body to move even when I wanted to sink into the couch. I started jogging again, something I hadn't done since before the marriage fell apart. The first runs were brutal, lungs burning, legs screaming, but with every mile I felt a little more of the weight lift off me. Work became my anchor. I poured myself into long days, taking on extra projects, showing up early and leaving late. The noise of hammers and drills, the smell of sawdust, it grounded me. My boss noticed my effort, and opportunities began opening up. Instead of drifting through the fog, I had direction again. Little by little, I also reached out to people who hadn't abandoned me. A couple of friends had believed me from the start, even when others turned their backs. I called them, apologized for shutting them out, and they welcomed me back like no time had passed. Sitting around a fire pit with them one night, I realized how much I'd missed laughter that wasn't forced, conversation that wasn't shadowed by suspicion. Solitude, too, stopped feeling like punishment. I discovered the quiet could be peaceful. I'd spend weekends hiking trails outside the city, reading books I'd put off for years, or fixing small things around the house. Slowly, the silence that once crushed me turned into something healing. Months passed, and then I met someone new. Her name was Claire. She worked at a bookstore I visited on a rainy afternoon. Our first conversation wasn't dramatic, just a simple exchange about a novel I was holding. But it felt easy, natural in a way that surprised me. I didn't jump into anything. My heart wasn't ready for that yet, but we began sharing coffee now and then. No pressure, no expectations, just two people enjoying each other's company. For the first time in a long while, hope felt possible. Meanwhile, I heard through mutual connections that Rachel was struggling. She had cut ties with Jessica completely, but the damage was already done. Word of what Jessica had done spread after the gathering, and Rachel carried the shame of believing her. Whenever our paths crossed in town, she'd glance at me with eyes full of regret. She saw me standing taller, healthier, surrounded by the friends I'd regained, and she knew I was moving on. There were no dramatic speeches between us after that, no last-minute pleas. Just the quiet reality that her chance had passed, and my life was no longer tied to her. For me, healing didn't come in one big wave. It came in small, steady steps, running an extra mile, laughing a little louder, feeling lighter in my own skin. I wasn't the same man I had been before the lies, but maybe that was the point. I was building something new, something stronger, piece by piece. Looking back on it all now, the pieces fall into place like a story I never asked to live through. There was betrayal, there was heartbreak, and yes, there was revenge, but not in the way most people imagine it. I thought once that revenge meant tearing someone else down, making them feel the same pain I carried. But the truth is, the real victory came in surviving what was meant to crush me and finding myself again on the other side. When Rachel walked away, I felt like my whole life had collapsed in a single moment. When friends turned cold, I thought I'd never recover from the loneliness. And when Jessica whispered her poison, it nearly convinced the world that I was the villain in my own story. But here I stand, not ruined, not buried, but breathing stronger than I ever have before. The night I revealed Jessica's lies, I thought that was the peak of my revenge, that exposing her would be enough. And maybe for a moment, it was satisfying to watch her reputation crumble. But time showed me that real freedom didn't come from her downfall. It came from walking away without needing her name on my lips, from no longer letting her have space in my thoughts. The same was true with Rachel. She realized too late what she had lost, and though part of me will always carry love for her, I couldn't live my life chained to that wound. I gave her my best years, my loyalty, and my trust, and she traded them for suspicion and lies. My revenge wasn't slamming the door on her. It was opening new ones for myself, ones she could never enter again. Now my days are mine. My nights are no longer haunted by whispers I can't defend myself against. I wake up with purpose. I surround myself with people who value truth, and I no longer beg anyone to believe in me. I know who I am, and that's enough. Sometimes, on a quiet evening, I catch myself thinking about the past, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Every scar reminds me that I made it through something that should have broken me. I learned the hard way that people you trust can be the ones who cut deepest, but I also learned that healing doesn't come from waiting on their apologies. It comes from building a life they can't touch anymore. So if there's one lesson I can leave with you, it's this. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't shouting louder than the lies. It's living in a way that makes the lies irrelevant. Because in the end, Jessica lost her grip on the story. Rachel lost the life we built together. And me? I walked out of the fire still standing. Sometimes the best revenge is simply surviving what was meant to break you and coming out stronger. Do you think I made the right choice walking away from them? Or should I have tried to forgive and start over? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.